I guess there are more questions because they may be stupid or nothing, that as I've read through everything through the application and through the phase one materials, there were just some things that popped out at me. One was the HOP. Has there been an inspection of the HOP by PennDOT? That was, somewhere in what I've read, that has to happen.
We were given the HOP permit, I don't think it's been closed out yet. They would come out and do a final inspection where we had to seal something.
Okay, and.
That would affect turning the road over to the township.
But it won't have anything to do, then it wouldn't have anything to do with phase two at this point.
I wouldn't think so.
No, because, okay.
Is the township, I didn't think the township was taking over Hidden Hollow Road.
If you read the land development plans, that was
That's in there.
that is designated as a public road. So we would love to get that process moving as soon as we can.
Okay.
And
We
that's
build it
why
to,
I
we
asked
build it
about
to
the
the specs of a
HOP.
public road, so, yeah, and that's what was approved.
And that was a requirement of the PRD process. It
Uh-huh.
required that the site connect to a public collector road. So that's
Mhm.
why the road's so wide and
Okay.
so thick, pavement section.
Is that what Sean talked about in meetings before, the width of the roads? And if there was ever, like, school buses, like the roads, what was that? Do you remember Sean saying,
It's when they
About-
wanted to reduce the width.
yeah, they wanted to reduce the width
And Sean had
and
concerns
because
over
of school buses?
We didn't reduce the width.
That, yeah, for us to take over a road, it has to fit our specs. And part of that would be the, width of it, width and the depth.
That's
and-
what Sean was talking about.
Is that what he's
Um,
done? Okay. Is it for our specs?
Yes.
They dropped them in half for those roads.
The town, they meet the specs, but the township specs.
But PennDOT would still have to, no, that's not a PennDOT road, HOP, the township. Our engineer would have to look at it to give the final approval to say that it meets the specs.
Yeah, typically it would be inspected at the conclusion of the project, and, you know, if it's deemed to be acceptable, the township would take it over, if it meets the township specifications.
Okay. Something else that was, in the paperwork that I was reading was the fire hydrant flow. Has that,
Yes, ma'am, we provided a letter, I sent a letter to Dennis, so for more meeting, he asked for that, Steve, and I sent that to him sometime last week,
okay,
so Dennis should have that.
okay,
And just to bring you up to speed, so what happened there when we were going through permitting, PA American Water said they can't guarantee what the flow is gonna be from those fire hydrants. So what we did, once we constructed to the high point of our site, we did fire hydrant flow test.
Yeah.
And came up with a flow rate that we actually have as opposed to calculated.
Okay.
And that's the letter that Ryan submitted. I'll send you.
Just curious, what's the distance on your fire hydrants?
I believe they're 500, aren't they?
It was approved by the township, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think they're 500 or 600. It's the new
Whatever-
PA American
whatever the
Water standard.
Yeah.
this is basically my thoughts. The traffic assessment that I was reading through was completed in 2019, which is already 3 years ago. And, there is obviously talk, discussion, concern about not having a turning lane in there. Should that traffic assessment be, looked at again, since it's been 3 years, we're pushing to 4 years since it was done?
Is that a question for me?
In general, I'm not sure who,
That's something to say.
Typically in our experience, as long as there's not a tangible change to the amount of anticipated trips associated with the development, if they haven't changed the amount of lots that are proposed as part of the development, if there hasn't been any, you know, major amendments to, a trip generation study that would have been done. Probably it's adequate as it is, I would think. Maybe Brian or
No.
speak to that.
I mean, I agree, and I think, this isn't a new project, everything's been approved and through the process. So, I mean, we have several township approvals that we're really finalizing, the last piece of this subdivision. As opposed to generating any new traffic, new lots, anything that was not planned and was not designed for.
At the last township meeting, when Weber Properties were here, and they were talking about having some access road out onto Hidden Hollow, the kid from Worcester said that Paul Scarmazzi had applied for a turning lane. Is that true?
So that has, the turning lane, Paul was working, for grants and such for a turning lane in case we decided to develop the property further north. So that has nothing to do with this PRD. So that has to do with future expansion. So when we went through all this process, I guess about 3 years ago, and the PRD was approved, it was, you gotta imagine, so you approve a PRD so we can build this many homes, so we buy the property in anticipation of building this many homes. It'd be a little rough for someone to come back on us and be like, oh, you can't build these homes that you got approved in the PRD. But the turning lane has nothing to do with this, it has to do with future expansion,
Future.
and I don't know if it'll happen or not.
Okay. Yeah, just because with all the development that's gonna be happening, it seems like there's gonna be a problem. I mean, and it's not there's just across the street, I have a feeling they're gonna develop that Weber Properties, putting in an Aldi's and other stuff. That is just gonna be a mess, and I'm just looking forward and thinking like, maybe the conversations needs to start now, not when we got a problem.
Right. 88 is a state route, correct? So
That's
the
right.
township doesn't have too much to say on that, or do they?
Well, even like if they put the Aldi in, there's gonna have to be,
There's gonna have to be a
on the
traffic light.
study,
Yeah.
it says, so
Right.
every time they would add something on, there would be
There'd be a
a
traffic study
new
done.
look
New,
at each
yes.
one.
But it has to
Exactly.
be something that coincides more with, it's a state route and not necessarily through the township, so I don't know. I believe too that extra turning lanes are great, but really it isn't part of our process for that area.
It is,
It is.
as a planning commission.
You can actually
We
condemn somebody's property by accident, cause if I have a big strip of property on 88 and poor planning makes mine undevelopable, I could, which I don't, but if I did, I could then sue the township and say, I can't even do anything with my property now because your poor planning has made it that I can't access 88 anymore. So yeah, it is
Yes,
part of the
it is
process.
part of the whole process.
That you have to plan properly, but unfortunately, Mr. Weber brought them up during his conversation. They even made it seem like.
And I think the easy answer is, we did study this extensively with this project. And, we determined if we start adding pieces to it, then there will be issues and PennDOT will require it. So what Paul was doing was going to see if there were funding sources. Cause putting the turn lanes on 88 probably does not support the additional acreage that's here. So if there's money and there's help, then it could make sense, but there isn't. So he is planning ahead and, knows
Yeah,
that.
that's.
The township did, we signed a support grant
Yeah.
for the
Yep.
grant thing, yeah. I think if it wasn't mentioned that the other property in front of you was talking about going into Hidden Hollow, it wouldn't have been a concern about Hidden Hollow.
Whatever process they gotta go through.
Yeah,
Right.
and I know Tractor Supply did an amended traffic study when they came in, so, I mean, every piece as they come in gets evaluated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to obtain a driveway permit, you have to have a traffic study, and you have to have cons. You have to have sight distance. Scarpese, in my opinion, is questionable on the left-hand side. That bank should be taken back further. It's a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. You need 350 feet of clear visibility at the intersection. even Tractor Supply. Now, what they did there, they built that bank, I guess between it's a remainder. It was the cheapest way versus removing the dirt. The next development will probably put a bank against that. My suggestion is it shouldn't be there.
I guess all I could say to that is Scarmazzi does have an HOP permit, and it is being constructed, and it will be inspected by PennDOT, so they have to comply with the permit.
It's like this
Well,
one's
by
already
the
been
same
inspected.
token, if you keep encroaching on it prior to development, you won't have the room for this PennDOT suggestion. So the PennDOT has to be prior to the development.
Yeah, the PennDOT's already came out and inspected the site distance and everything, and it was approved, or they would not have issued the HOP.
Yeah, but PennDOT, like most, government agencies, dictate with horse blinders on. That whole area is gonna be a bottleneck. It's not just the 78 acres under development now, the, Kurt's farm. Plus how much acreage is behind it. And then you have Mineral Beach involvement there. Now, I read this, I know, I haven't been here for 5 or 6 years. What's the deal on the road there? Is it part of the township road now, going up to the old school up there, the Nike site, or not?
The Hidden Hollow,
Yeah,
not yet, apparently in the builder's agreement, we're taking it over.
is it built to specifications? Did they purchase more, width? In this document I read here, it goes back and forth with no conclusion.
I believe it's pretty clear. We acquired right away to have a 60-foot public right of way there, which meets your collector road standard. The cartway is wider than your local, I forget the number, so I'm not gonna quote it. And
Well, I don't know
the
what
section
there
depth
now,
is deeper
but
too.
normal is 50 foot. I don't know if it's a 40-foot easement or 20-foot easement or
It's a s-
whatever it might be.
It's a 60-foot right
It's
of
a
way.
60-foot right of way, so it's 10-foot additional than your typical 50 feet.
Okay,
So it is built to township collector road standards.
then there was an issue here about, you have a coal seam on top. Is that gonna be used or wasted?
If you look at the Washington County, Planning Commission, that the records show that the subdivision contains landslide prone conditions and that it is located in an area that has a surface coal seam.
Yeah, that land was strip mined previously, and everything we've done up there has been with the geotech. We have certifications on the roads, on the lot pads. We did not hit any coal seams that we had to remove or do anything with.
That hill was never stripped.
My understanding was I heard they kept it open as a permit, as a development, so that they could take the coal out of there.
There's actually never been any stripping. It was farm. It was hay fields, cornfields, and there was a dairy farm there. The biggest complaint back then was they didn't clean the barn out, and the people across the street didn't like the smell. He put it in a manure spreader and put it on his field, so it's never been stripped up on top.
We had not found any coal. We've drilled it. We've done everything. The foundations are being certified. We hit a lot of rock up there. We dealt with that appropriately. You know, we broke it up to the size the geotech would let us place. We placed it in the fills. We monitored it going in. So, I mean, as far as those issues, I mean, we've done our due diligence and followed through.
And most, around here, 80 feet above the Pittsburgh coal seam, you'll hit Redstone or Freeport, whatever you wanna call it, 4-foot coal. So, whatever elevation is from the coal seam, which is basically down there where, Tractor Supply is, you go up 80 feet, go back in, you're gonna hit coal. I don't know, I'm not familiar with your grading permit as dispersion or what you've done up on top as such.
I'm not sure.
We'll be glad to provide you the geotechnical report with all the borings and all the monitoring. We're not geotechs, we'll provide that information to you, and your engineer can.
Well, it would
Research
be
it
probably
himself.
at the furthest end of your property on the highest elevation.
We're essentially to grade on
Yeah,
the
we're
whole
done.
site,
Okay,
and we haven't encountered, any coal or anything that had to come off the site.
well, I'm just bringing it up and what I read.
You mentioned you mostly rough graded everything to begin with, right? It's all,
Yeah, I mean, we're to grade within what, a foot probably everywhere right now. There's maybe one section in the middle of a little bit of cut that needs to get moved, but, and
Yeah, a little bit left on phase 3, everything's done.
yeah, we'd be glad to meet you on site, walk it with the inspector and our contractor, and make sure everybody's on the same page.
I have a question, and this is just a general, again, there was a comment about sidewalk requirements, if there was. Are there sidewalks up there? Is that-
Well, they wouldn't be 100% done yet, but we're building to the
Yeah,
approved
no, it was
plans.
just out of curiosity, I didn't know if that
There's a
was
good
on
many
the
of there right
top,
now, but they're on the subdivision plan, so we're comply with that.
This is only what, 18 or 20 units? For phase.
Phase 2 was
17 single-family units,
17.
17.
But then, where's the four, I thought it said 4 condominiums on there too. Did it say that on
I mean,
that?
it's
4 units?
17 plus.
4 condominiums, right?
How much they call it?
No, no, I swear that, I read that.
Yeah, that's correct, Laura.
And where's the
On,
4,
Anthony Carmacy's transmittal letter dated November 21, 2022, it says, Phase 2 of the development contains 17 single-family lots along with 4 condominium lots.
I didn't see where the 4 condominium lots were. On this map.
Yeah.
There's 17, I see 17, but
Yeah.
I didn't see 4 condominium.
Yeah, I believe that is incorrect information. This plat is 17 lots. 4 condominiums would be one of the quad buildings. They're not within this plat.
So then we can say
It's 17,
17.
number of
17
residential
single
lots,
family.
17.
and Harold, the fees are where they should be, up to date.
My understanding is the fees
I have another question. On, Washington County's website, the parcel viewer, it's still listed as commercial, not residential.
That's it.
I know, I just wanna make sure,
County has their own.
yeah, because I don't know when it was ever changed or
We have
when.
to take everything off that site with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I know, but it was just like, I was
I've
like,
had
oh
some
my God, and I
conversations
thought,
about
did
that's
they,
not a commercial
does
building.
something need to
He
get
said, yeah,
updated? And it might be to you guys' benefit to tell them, look, on your parcel viewer, it's showing commercial. And it should, I mean, because I didn't know when the zoning changed, because it was commercial.
See, they don't know whether to call it by the zoning or by the building code.
I know, well, I looked at all the other little stuff and it says SS, and there's not even a description for SS, and I'm like, what the hell does SS mean? For all the other places that you've already built. And it's just like, yeah, I looked at their glossary and it's like, SS isn't even in there, so what the heck is that? And then I'm like, oh my God, I pulled up, what your parcel number was on your, submission, and I'm like, it still says commercial in there. But I didn't know when the rezoning took place, and,
It took place in the middle of COVID.
It would have been one of their initial steps as part of their development to change the zoning classification so that they could pursue
Okay.
conditional use approval to obtain a PRD.
Okay, I'm just checking, because I mean, I'm new to this, and
Yeah.
I'm questioning,
Uh,
and,
I noticed that as well. I think it's
Yeah.
probably an error on the county's part. I'm not sure.
Never
Thank you.
recent bond set forth that the front was commercial and the back was, long ago on that property.
And it's all changed.
Huh?
It's all changed.
Well, I understand it all changed, but there was still a break in the use of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Labeled differently.
but yeah, I mean, just
Thank
wanted to better question it than not.
Was there anything, I saw some correspondence about, was ever a dye test needed done, or was a dye test ever done? I saw some correspondence, possibly there was questions about certification of occupancy based on dye test being done.
Are you that far along?
I mean, that's on the home building side, so I don't run the home building department.
Are there
I mean, they-
units ready to go for people?
There's
to
people
move
living
in?
up there, so if Peters Creek gave, approved the occupancy permits and everything,
People's living up there.
I don't have a home builder here to answer that question on the home building side.
I just saw correspondence in my folders talking about dye tests, so I wasn't sure if that was something you guys needed to address for that, that's all.
Ryan, have the sanitary sewers for phase one been accepted by Peters Creek? I believe they have. haven't
Yes.
they? Okay.
Now, which units are, I drove up there Sunday because I'm doing my research here. And I saw lot 17, like at the very top, like it's sold already, it looks like, lot 17. But, and then I thought the ones that were people, it looked like somebody was in there, but they were models. I didn't know that there was people living in there already.
Yeah, we have a couple models, and I know there's been at least one closing.
Okay, one closing, okay. And does the township have to give an occupancy permit?
The building code official,
Okay, that's you? Okay, so you have to do that too?
those were out before me, so.
Oh, okay, so they already did that, I guess? They already did that? The old board or the old?
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sure they did, there would be.
Yes, they have to
I
have
can't
occupancy.
answer
Okay,
that.
Comment
okay.
would be
Little
who
question, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
knows? Yeah.
It'd be a final inspection, and, Peters Creek would have their final on also, and then the building code official would do his inspection and give it occupancy.
I mean, technically, we should have copies of that here, right?
Sure.
Should.
Did you guys have copies of those?
Brian and I are on the land side, so once the lots are basically established, it goes to another section of Scarmazzi
Okay.
Homes, so.
Okay.
We just don't have the knowledge.
Yeah, if you need some information, email me and I'll get you to the right contact.
I'll
I
call
don't do
Aaron.
building, I don't do building permits.
I'll call Aaron.
Okay. He'll take care of you.
Aaron will know, he's the project manager.
All right, any other questions?